So let's say you just got yourself a brand new DJI Flip here after checking out multiple reviews. You've seen some pretty impressive shots with some amazing image quality, but when you take a look at your footage from your first flight, you see that your video doesn't look nearly as good as others and you're actually thinking about returning it. Well, don't. In today's video, I want to talk about the best settings for the DJI Flip and how I get the best possible image quality even without any sort of controller. So let's get into it. Let's start with the RC2 controller here, or the RCN3 or the RCN2. They all work in the same way basically. The only difference here is that this has a built-in screen. Now, the first thing you really need to change is the color profile. The normal color profile coming from the DJI Flip here doesn't look that bad, but in some situations it might be too contrasty or even a bit too over sharp. Imagine capturing some amazing videos, or at least you thought they turned out pretty amazing, but when you check back, they all look like some of these oversaturated, contrasty social media filters. So if we go over to the controller here and then over to the camera settings, you can see that we have two options. We have the normal and the D-Log-M 10-bit color profile. And even if D-Log-M requires some color grading to actually look good, most of the editing apps now do offer some adjustments like saturation, contrast, sharpness, white balance, and all of those basic adjustments you need to make your video look better. So it's not said that you need to pay $300 for an editing app just to make your footage pop and look better. You can do everything on your phone if you prefer to do that. And that's also the cheapest way of doing it. DJI does also have their own light cut app, which has this D-Log-M correction feature, which you can just tap on that and it will automatically apply this D-Log correction to your footage. And to be honest, it looks absolutely stunning. So that's also another way of doing it, and this is completely free. So make sure to check out the DJI Light Cut app down in the description. Now, to get the best possible image, of course, D-Log-M is required because it is a flat, high dynamic color profile, which preserves more of the details in the highlights and shadows. But let's say you don't want to spend the time with the adjustments and you just want to capture some videos with the DJI Flip here in a normal color profile that you can upload straight to social media or go back and watch on your TV at home. So regardless of making your videos public or not, your viewing experience will be much greater if you lower the sharpness to -2 if you use the normal color profile. But if we go back to D-Log-M and look at the sharpness settings, in 99% of the time and in your shots, you don't really need to change this to -2, and you can actually keep this to 0 if you prefer that. But you know, it's that 1%, that one additional percent of those 99% which makes a difference. It also depends on how heavy you grade your footage and what you do with the shadows, midtones, and highlights in editing, because lowering the shadows and the midtones will also increase the contrast, and if you mix this with increasing highlights as well, you basically add in more contrast, which makes the footage appear sharper. So it's actually a fine balance here when it comes to fully optimizing the D-Log-M color profile and the D-Log-M footage coming from the DJI Flip here in post. But if you lower the sharpness to -2 on the controller here, you'll end up with a softer image with less sharpness, which also gives you more room to adjust in post and potentially add your favorite LUTs. Now the next thing you might want to change, or you need to change because it makes a huge difference, is the white balance. This should never be set to auto, especially if you fly in environments which has a lot of colors like turquoise water versus green landscape. So in scenarios like this, the white balance will always try to adjust because of reflections from the sun, you have moving water, and perhaps you fly towards or in a circle around something, which can cause the shift in white balance. So it's really important that you always set a manual white balance to make sure that you get a consistent temperature throughout your video, which also makes the post-processing easier because the color stays the same. Now, the last option we need to enable is Pro settings or manual mode. On the bottom right corner here on the controller, you can see that it says auto. So when we tap on that, it goes over to Pro mode or manual mode, where you unlock all the different camera settings to be able to change things like ISO, shutter speed, white balance. The aperture is also here, but you can't change that because it has a fixed aperture. And we also have resolution, a color profile, storage, and the exposure value. Basically everything you need to get the best possible image. It's also important to know that to get the best possible image quality with the DJI Flip here, if you fly in bright conditions, you would really need to use an ND filter to keep your shutter speed from running in the highs, so like 1000, 2000, 3000. So the optimal shutter speed is twice of your frame rate. So for this clip right here, I'm recording my videos in 4K 60 FPS, and twice of that is 60 plus 60, 1/120. But my shutter speed is set to 1/160, which is also fine. It's not said that you have to have the exact twice of your frame rate. There is some room for adjustments. But there's also a difference between a shutter speed set to 2000 and one set to 200. And higher shutter speeds will also affect the overall image, contrast, and sharpness. But if you're unsure what type of ND filters to use, it's always better to go with the 64 instead of 32 if you're filming on a bright sunny day, for example, and rather increase the ISO if your image turns out a little bit dark, instead of having to increase the shutter to a couple of thousand because your image is way too bright. A pro tip is also to use the exposure value or the icon here on the controller. For D-Log M, you want to stay between 0 and plus 0.7 because it's a flat color profile and you're still going to preserve that details in the highlights and shadows. But preferably plus 0.3. And for the normal color profile, you just want to stay at 0 because that will give you the overall best exposure using the normal color profile. Now, if you're moving over to the smartphone here, we lose all these options. There's no manual settings and no adjustments, and you're basically running full auto. And it doesn't matter if you adjust all the settings on the RC controller here. Once you change to your smartphone and use the drone without a controller or with your smartphone, the settings will automatically go back to default auto settings. So auto ISO, auto shutter speed, auto white balance, sharpness, and all that is set back to default. So sharpness is set to 0. The color profile will be set to normal if it's not already set to D-Log M using your phone. So what we need to do here is to go over to the settings on our phone here and over to color profiles, and then change this from the normal color profile over to D-Log M. Of course, you'll be fine by using the normal color profile if you just want to capture some videos here and there, and that's it basically. But if you want to get the best possible image quality with the DJI Flip here using it hands-free, you will need to change this to D-Log M. The good thing is that once you change this to the D-Log M on your smartphone, regardless of switching between the RC controller and your phone, the color profile will still stay at D-Log M even using it hands-free with your smartphone or with the controller. But the settings have to be changed when using the smartphone with the Flip here, and everything that you do on the controller won't be transferred over to the DJI Flip, just to make that clear, so you understand the limits of settings when you fly something like the DJI Flip here. But the good thing is that once you change the color profile to D-Log M, this will apply to every single shooting mode, every single quick shot, direction track, helix, follow, and even when you fly manually with your smartphone and the virtual joystick. So you don't have to go into each mode and change the color profile to D-Log M. You just have one settings that you change to D-Log M and it's applied to every single feature, which is also pretty convenient. But hopefully we can see this fixed with a future firmware update. For now, we don't have much of settings to use with the DJI Flip, so I would really like to have at least white balance or something exposure value, just a few things to make it more convenient and easier to use when you're using this hands-free to achieve optimal settings and optimal image quality. So hopefully we can see that in the future. That would be amazing. Now, when it comes to color correcting and grading the D-Log M footage coming from the DJI Flip here, I use my custom LUTs for the DJI Flip, and for the Neo, I use my DJI Neo Lutbundle to make the footage look even better with unique color patterns and image enhancements built into each individual LUT. So if you want to take your videos to the next level, or maybe you just want to have it corrected by a simple LUT, check out my Signature LUTs and the DJI and Neo Lutbundle down below, and I'll also leave some videos on how to optimize the footage on these drones manually if you use your own LUT, or if you don't want to use any LUT at all and maybe just, correct it and grade it manually. So that's a wrap for this video. That's how I get the best possible image quality with my DJI Flip here. D-Log M is crucial. You have to lower the sharpness settings, you have to use manual white balance, and you also have to use pro settings or manual settings, ISO, shutter speed, and exposure value, white balance, so on. And you have to use an ND filter to lower that shutter speed. If you apply all of these things, you will have the best looking image quality possible coming from your DJI Flip or the DJI Neo here if you fly with a smartphone. It's basically the same thing for every single drone, but if you were unsure of how I got these amazing shots with the DJI Flip here, this is basically how I do it. When it comes to color grading, this is also, your personal opinion. Do you want to add a unique style, or do you want to keep it simple, clean, and natural? All up to you, but if you're interested in these LUTs, check them out down below. So that's everything for today. Thanks for watching, and make sure to hit that subscribe and like button. That would be appreciated, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.